watching IGN Live. The gentleman to my left, Stig Asmussen, has been a huge part of some giant keyword franchises like the director of God of War 3, the director of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the director of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now he's got a new giant in store for us, his brand new studio, Giant Skull. Here to tell us about that is the man himself, Stig Asmussen. Stig, thank you so much for coming out to IGN Live.
Of course. Thanks for having me here. I'm really happy to represent the team at Giant Skull.
Yeah, and it is a team that is off to the races here. You've been at it for 9 months, I believe you told me, and you're...
We opened up the doors September 29th, 2023, so do the math.
So building it, you know, you've shipped a couple great games with Respawn, of course, the Star Wars... I mean, the Star Wars Jedi games are possibly the best Star Wars games ever made. They're in the conversation, at the very least, as the best Star Wars games ever made. And so, my natural first question for you, because you and I have known each other for a bit here, like, why leave? Like, it seems like you did have a really good thing going at Respawn with Star Wars. You were set up to maybe just keep going, make another Star Wars Jedi game. So yeah, what was kind of the decision for you to go out on your own?
It's a really good question. It's a fair question. And it's not something that I was looking to do, to be honest. I love the team at Respawn, loved the whole experience. They're really proud of being a part of that. But an opportunity came along that I wasn't even looking for, found me, and it was you know, all about starting a new studio. And I will say some of my fondest memories making games were the early days at Respawn. And we were kind of like a garage band, building up the team from scratch, and the idea of being able to do that again, it was something that I couldn't shake.
Yeah.
And you know, the whole experience, it's crazy because it's been the most exciting time of my life, but also the most terrifying. But, you know, fortunately, there's been a lot of, like, really talented and kind and, like, good people that have joined the team at Giant Skull with me. And you know, I feel the support from them every single day. And we basically feed off of, like, this new energy that we have.
Yeah. So...
Thank you.
A common thread that we can draw from the last 3 games you've directed, God of War 3, Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, they are all phenomenal, single-player, narrative-driven, third-person action-adventure games. All those adjectives apply to all 3 of those last games you've done. So what kind of game do you want to make at Giant Skull? Are you going to be sticking to this incredible... niche you've carved out? Are we looking to do something else? Like, what's the thinking so far in the early days of Giant Skull?
We're making a racing game. No, we're sticking to what we do. Third-person action adventure it's in our DNA. It's fortunately it's what we like to play, and we happen to be pretty good at making those types of games as well too. So it was, you know, starting a new studio. One of the things that's really important is that you stay focused and you do what you're good at. And we're sticking to our guns. We're not going to talk exactly about what the game is right now, and that's for a later date. But I will say, if you like those games that you just mentioned, you're really going to like what we're cooking up right now.
Well, I think we've got a room full of folks that love high-quality single-player games. And another common thread, another adjective I could have thrown on there a minute ago was... none of your games have microtransactions in them. So I know you're in the early days of the project, but like kind of in all seriousness, the monetization, the economics of the industry have changed a lot over the last certainly 10 years, but even 5. So, I mean, are you even thinking about that at this point? You know, if you are making a single-player, narrative-driven, high-quality third-person action-adventure game, do you have to kind of think about the monetization and the realities of the money side of making games? Do you really worry about that now, or is that something that you cross that bridge later on in the course of the project?
Honestly, it's not something that I ever think about. So we're always focused on we're focused on fun. We're focused on the experience moment to moment, and To me, that seems like a distraction at this point.
I mean, clearly, the Jedi games and God of War, they sold pretty damn well without asking for another penny from anybody. So it can be done, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole point, right? You make something that's awesome that people like to play, and they're going to pay for it, and we're going to make sure that there's value to that experience, so that money is well spent.
So it is a unique opportunity because I mean you started the Jedi team at Respawn, but not the studio. So there are certain things like the sort of the culture of the studio that's already in place, but now you are starting from scratch. You're starting Giant Skull, and so like culturally, what are some of your studio goals? Like, what do you want Giant Skull to be to its employees, and also sort of outward facing to the fans, to the gaming community? What do you hope the studio is?
So that was one of the first things that we did. I mean, we had to figure out what the concept for the game was. We had to figure out, the name of the studio. We had to figure out who we are as people and what kind of people are we looking to join our team, but also how do we want to speak to players. And one of the things that was a big part of Respawn and the culture at Respawn that we carried over was autonomy. We want to make sure that everybody that's on the team, we don't micromanage. We want people to have ownership. We believe that excellence comes from the collective. And I'm not, as a leader, I'm not a dictator. I'm here to support the team. And they're the pros that do all the hard work. One of the other things that was really important is curiosity. And we look for curiosity in our players as well, too. We want people that are going to join the team that are curious and that are always asking questions and trying to improve themselves. But we also look for players that want to really dig into the experiences that we're making and see what's behind the curtain. Momentum is probably, I would say, our biggest value. We're always trying to push forward. There's a rhythm to how we do things. There's a cadence and there's a tempo, and we get charged by seeing the work that everybody's doing, and it fuels us as individuals to keep moving forward. And we're going to ask that of players as well that play our games, is that we're going to deliver something that has a rhythm and a cadence to it, so you'll want to keep on playing and you'll feel that momentum. And then last but not least is respect. We just want to make sure that we respect everybody on the team, that we create a safe environment for people to work in, but also we respect the players and we create authentic worlds, because we know the players are smart and they'll call out BS if we make something that's random.
I feel like you could put "we don't micromanage" on any job posting and you would instantly get 50% more job applications. But one thing you said that I found kind of interesting, is when you mentioned autonomy as a big part of studio culture. How does that gel with, because we probably have some young / aspiring game developers in the room right now, but autonomy, at least to me, kind of suggests a veteran, somebody that's shipped some games and made some stuff. So are you kind of trying to build more of a veteran team of people that have kind of done it before, or is there room for mentorship and bringing up young developers on your team too? I'm sort of curious how you're approaching that.
All of the above. We have, right now, I think our average years of experience for our first 30 people is 15 years, which is pretty crazy. Wow. A very experienced team, but we're going to start bringing in young people to join the studio, because we need fresh ideas, and that's the best place to find them.
Do we have any aspiring game developers in the crowd? Yeah, look at that. There's some hands going up, because there's.
Apply at giantskull.com.
There you go. Well, where does the name Giant Skull come from? Is there you already shaking your head like this, maybe you were drunk at the time, or what? Is there a good story here?
It was. It's a good story. Coming up with a name is really difficult, because you want to have a name that you can own, that could be part of your brand, part of your website. We wanted a .com, and one of the first things that we did, I didn't want to come in and dictate to the team, like, this is the name of the studio. I wanted us to kind of discover it together. So we just started throwing out names. And pretty much everything that we threw up there was already taken. And one thing that we knew is, like, remember I talked about curiosity before. We wanted to have something that had mystery and intrigue to it. So people would ask that question, why Giant Skull? And so I love that question. But the reality is, like I said, we opened September 29th. Our very early days when we were searching for the name was during October. And, you know, Halloween's a big, probably my favorite holiday. And one of the things that's was really big in LA, and I'm sure a lot of the people in the audience here have seen them, are the 12-foot giant skeletons that people put in their yards. I became obsessed with those, and Home Depot was all out of them. I actually paid double on eBay and got one, and set it up with my son. And the thing was so impressive, and it was actually kind of sad when I had to take it down. But there's always next year. But like during that, my coworkers and I, every time we saw one in LA, we started a group message and we'd take pictures of them. And then we started thinking, what about Skeleton Crew? That could be a pretty cool name. It's got mystery. It's got intrigue to it. That was taken. And one of the props I bought when I was like looking at the giant skeleton, there was a giant skull that you could buy, and it sits like about this tall. And one day I was like looking at we put it at the front desk at our office, and it had a tag on it that said Giant Skull, and I'm like, and it was just a white tag with black lettering, Giant Skull, and I'm like, it really spoke to me, and I'm like, this could be the name of our studio. And the team and I started talking about it. We let it stew for a while, and yeah, it's cool. I think that, you know, the imagery, everybody's got a skull, right? And the imagery is like really easy to find. It's one of the best parts about it is it's a very impactful, like, it makes a statement, it's a brand. And we look at the studio as like a brand. It's a brand beyond the games that we're making.
Yeah, and here I thought
sorry, that was kind of long-winded.
No, my first assumption was, oh, one of the co-founders has a giant head, and you just went with Giant Skull. But that's a better story. I like that. So another part of making games, besides the economics that's changed over the last 3, 4, 5 years, is where you work and you know, physically, how do you make the game? So. A lot of studios are kind of, some are getting back to full time in studio, in person. Some have always been completely remote. So where is Giant Skull on that spectrum of, are you wanting everybody in your LA area studio? Is it remote? Is it hybrid? Like, what's that part of the studio culture that you're wanting to establish? It's
totally up to the individual. You know, we support full-time remote. We support people coming in, you know, hybrid, full-time in the office. We try to create an inviting place in the office for people that come there and want to collaborate there. But, like, you know, I get it. Like, everybody worked through the pandemic. The Jedi game, Survivor, was made entirely throughout the pandemic.
And you did we deal with so many game delays, which are obviously harder on you developers than they are on us gamers, as much as we mourn them on Twitter, like, oh, it delayed again. But you guys shipped Jedi Survivor on time, other than a little tiny extra little cushion at the end. But like, you guys did that like in 3 years, basically.
Yeah, I think it was closer to 3.5, but. You know what? It's one of those deals where we had to learn. We had to kind of retrain ourselves, just like everybody did, no matter what industry you're in. And we found some successes and like ways that maybe you can operate a little bit better under those conditions. And we tried to kind of, you know, encourage those practices, and we were able to get the game done on time. It was a great achievement. But at the same time, you know, I learned how everybody kind of has their own personal needs, and I didn't want to, you know, mandate with Giant Skull that people have to come into the office. Again, you know, I like to come in pretty much every single day, but that's my preference. I understand that everybody else has a different way that they're going to get their work done, and we will support that.
So last question I have for you is, you're thinking about this new project. You've worked with one of the biggest IPs in the world in Star Wars, and I'm sure there were ups and downs through that process. Have you thought yet whether Giant Skull's first game would be partnered up with somebody to work in an established world, or are you thinking create your own world?
Well, right now we're creating our own world, but it's not out of the question to work on licensed property again. You know, we've done it and we've had success in it, and it's not something that I would shy away from. But it would have to be the right opportunity. It would have to play to the strengths of the type of games that we as a studio make.
Fantastic. Stig Asmussen, the director of Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, God of War 3, the founder of Giant Skull, who's making a new single-player, narrative-driven, third-person action-adventure game for all of us here. We can't wait to see what you guys are hooking up, Stig. Thank you so much. Stick around because we've got tons more IGN Live, including Xbox's Phil Spencer, coming up a little later.